give up your power, because that's what you do when you don't vote. So what are we going to do? Vote! What are we going to do? Vote! What are we going to do? Vote! We're going to vote starting December the 14th and going all the way to December 31st, which is the last day of early voting. But then, January 5th, we're coming with the last wave. We're going to do what? Vote. What we gonna do? Vote. What we gonna do? Vote. All right.
Dr. Steele, welcome to SCLC TV, y'all. This is our president, Dr. Charles Steele Jr., at a news conference today outside our office. We heard you in the background, boss. It's about voting. Huh?
It's about voting, absolutely, man. It was great to hear Miss Butler, Miss Helen Butler, express herself like that. As you know, Helen has been in this movement of voting and registration and actually bringing about the correctness of elected officials and people of power in trying to discriminate toward the right to vote. And I just want to commend her in her own due and respect. It was a great rally and was right in front of the SCLC office, and we felt good about that.
You spoke as well as others. What were your comments aimed at before we get to Ms. Barbara Arnwine talking? What were you trying to emphasize there?
Well, first of all, I was talking about the historicity of the right to vote. Actually mentioned about in today's society, people don't mention the name frequently enough of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was actually killed protecting his mother and grandfather in terms of a state trooper trying to beat them down in their efforts for the right to vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson was out of Marion, Alabama, just got out of the military. And here you have a state trooper gun him down. And within a short period of time, 3 or 4 days, he made his transition. And the emotional aspect of this came out of Marion to Selma, Alabama. From Marion, Alabama to Selma. Well, the people there in Marion said, let's march from Selma, because that was a direct conveyance in terms of getting to Selma, rather than leaving Marion, then going to Selma. Let's start a march from Selma all the way for 54 miles to Montgomery, Alabama, and put the body of Jimmy Lee Jackson at the foot of the steps of the state capitol of Alabama when Governor George Wallace was governor. That's how it all started.
And today we're still talking about voter suppression, which Miss Attorney Barbara Arnwine, your friend, talks about right now.
We are here today because the world, the nation, everybody has one focus point for the next several weeks. And that focus point is Georgia. And the question is, how will Georgia vote? Will the people of Georgia come out? Will they show the world, show the nation like they did on November 3rd, that nobody knows us but us, that we know what needs to happen, and in this time, when we are suffering as Americans, where we see people in food lines because of food insecurity, stretching what people mouths, not blocks but mouths of people desperate for just the necessity of food. And our Senate, what is it doing? It's sitting back. It's not addressing the needs of the people. People need money. People, 40 million Americans threatened with evictions. But the worst tragedy, oh my goodness, the one that cuts to the core of why we're here, is that this good man, a year ago and a few days ago, on December the 6th, He stood in the will of the Congress as the House passed the Voting Rights Advancement Act. Yes. And he hugged me. Come on. And said, Barbara, we're getting it done. And that bill has been sitting in the Senate. Yes. Ever since, not even called up for a vote, not even called up for a hearing. They've done nothing. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is sitting there, and it needs to come to the floor.
Dr. Steele, that sounds like a passionate, moving news conference and almost a protest in and of itself. You were there. You engineered it. What was that like?
Well, I worked with Dr. Barbara Arnwine and Miss Helen Butler, and the support that we received there was very outstanding. And I'm honored to say that they felt as entrenched enough to ask me to do it at SCLC headquarters, the international office of SCLC, and suppressing the vote. And Maynard, what we brought out was that even in my speech, I said, you have to pressurize. We have to vote, but that ain't all we have to do. You have to pressurize the leaders in all aspects of politics, because some take us for granted and others just take us. You have to make a case. And I gave the example of A. Philip Randolph when he met with FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he said, make me do it. No politics or politician is going to do anything unless you make them do it.
Dr. Steele, in your office tomorrow also, many are saying it's going to be a landmark case, a showdown between civil rights veterans, attorneys, and the Republican National Committee over a lawsuit trying to stem the purge of some 200,000 voters, 97,000 to be exact. And another lady at the news conference today, attorney C.K. Hoffler, who's the head of the National Bar Association and Jesse Jackson's organization, spoke about that upcoming case.
Honor. It's a pleasure for me to be the president of the National Bar Association. I represent the interests of over 66,000 lawyers, judges, law students, law professors in this country. It's an honor for me to be chair of the board of Rainbow Push Coalition. I'm speaking on behalf of Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's an honor. But I want you all to know, ladies and gentlemen, that tomorrow I'm a trial lawyer. You see, I know someone who's never lost a case. I know someone who goes into battles and fights to represent over 197,000 Georgians that have been stripped, purged, oppressed from their right to vote. And that's what the battle is tomorrow. That's what we're doing. So I just wanted to say briefly to all of you assembled here today, we thank you for being here. For those who are in the fields, in the movement, marching every day, knocking on doors. During COVID, we say thank you. To Barbara Arnwine, the mother of election protection, that non-partisan movement that we are all involved in, I say thank you. To those of you in the ministry, in the church, and to Charles Steele Jr. from SCLC, the only SCLC. We thank you. We thank you for opening up your home. But I want you all to pray tomorrow, because tomorrow is judgment day.
Wow, that's pretty nice. They said that tomorrow this case is shaping up to be the next Brown versus the Board of Education. It's a major case, is it not?
It's very major. Georgia on my mind. Everything and everybody, Mr. Eaton, will be watching Georgia for many of reasons. People never thought that we could get to this point, that we couldn't arrive, that they could discriminate, they could purge the voters list. People died, gave the supreme sacrifice, their lives for the right to vote. That's America. It's un-American to go around and try to strip the rights of the citizenry of this country, in particular the people of color, black folks, and fair-minded thinking people, to try and eradicate the responsibility for each and every citizen in this country not to have the right to vote. And then to be silent when you have the nation leadership in the Oval Office goes around and just misrepresent the truth and everything that we're supposed to stand for, trying to create a revolt in terms of elimination of the right to vote. If you ever want to get started and bring the world to its feet, see what we don't realize, what we're doing right now at this moment, and what we have always done as oppressed people and people of color since the transatlantic African slave trade. People around the world have been watching us. And as you say, Mr. Eaton, it would be tomorrow. And I'd like to salute none other than my good friend, Attorney Fred Gray. And I brought up the name of Dr. Lafayette, Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was roommates with none other than Congressman John Lewis, who had the vision for many of years, just being there on campus at American Baptist College. These gentlemen and others, many, many, many others, have paid the price. I was talking to Dr. Bernard Lafayette the other day, my chairman, and he said, "Still, it's rough, but hang in there. Don't you give up." And I said, "Doc, as long as you hang with me, we'll never give up." And that's where we are. And I thank all of the participants. Yes, sir.
Dr. Steele, that was quite a salute, quite a tribute to you and SCLC. All the folks who are there, and a nice compliment that Attorney Hoffler gave us. That says a lot about you and SCLC.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Eaton. Attorney Harper, it was just an honor for me to be with her and Attorney Barbara Arnwine and her chairman of the board, Dara, who also is an attorney. And we just had a time right there in my office. And then lunch was served. And as they engaged, because I got a strict diet right now, we continue the conversation. And they'll be back in the morning. They'll be back in the morning.
To argue that case, right? To argue that case,
it's going to be the case tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. Virtually, Mr. Eaton.
Yeah.
The virtually setting of the case will be coming out of SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and rightfully so. We are here to support them in all aspects of this movement.
Let's talk about another historic development that's played out today. General Lloyd Austin has been tapped by President-elect Biden to lead the Pentagon, the first black man to do so, standing on the shoulders of the Tuskegee Airmen and the Buffalo Soldiers. Your thoughts about his selection to lead the Defense Department, the Pentagon?
Well, first of all, I think it's an honor. Secondly, the historicity of what he has done, and now the world standing leader, gentleman, scholar, very in tune to the world politics, and he's also sensitive to the needs of the civil rights movement in order for him to be as successful as he is in the military. He has not forgotten his roots. But it's only one thing with that waiver. I'm concerned about that waiver. It was 10 years for anyone serving in that as a general, as he has been for many of years in that capacity. Or anyone coming out of retirement from the military will have to actually wait in a 10-year period slot before they can get an appointment of this magnitude. But it has been implemented and been orchestrated by other presidents, even as recent as the one we have here presently on his way out of the Oval Office. But the point being is that it's been done at least 3 times. But I'm concerned about any waiver in terms of bringing something to the table that will be another obstacle and another hurdle. And I have confidence, first of all, in Almighty God, and I have support and confidence in the community. It's community-based that must be delivered and support this type of concern, and the leadership of our newly president-elect, none other than President-elect Biden.
Speaking of President-elect Biden, many of your cohorts in the civil rights movement have urged him to nominate a black African-American as an attorney general nominee. The latest results in the news say his finalists are 3 white women. Would you, as others have said, is that the attorney general nominee must have a clear and bold record on civil rights and racial justice? I would imagine you'd agree with that point.
Absolutely. But I also will agree with the mindset of whoever it is. The mindset of the next attorney general to the United States of America need to understand the history in terms of which we have come as a nation, and be studious and astute in the fact of the history of the transatlantic African slave trade. We need to know the impact and the effect that has had, it has had upon the citizenry and the history of this country. That is something that whoever the attorney general is must realize. Maynard, for an example, I don't know if many of the people have been watching Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when a newly elected short period of time DA from district attorney from that county within Philadelphia actually the DA brought about the investigation of African falsely and wrongfully convicted in terms of various crimes, and several been murder crimes that they were lied upon and fraudulently framed. He said anyone who he feels that's been wrongfully convicted in the judicial setting of this country, that he was going to look into it. That's the type of attorney general, regardless of who will be sitting in that seat, must be sensitive to. And if it's a person of color, my Lord, I'm very sure that they're not going to get this disease we call amnesia and forget about where we come from. You can never is in the position.
What about Alabama's former U.S. Senator, outgoing U.S. Senator? I said 3 women, but he's one of the ones in the final list I'm talking about.
Well, you know, very much so. Currently, U.S. Senator Doug Jones. Doug Jones, not only is he an outstanding individual and person in his own right, but career-wise, he is one that really, the magnitude of his experience, and you're talking about the bombing of the Birmingham Church, 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, and actually getting justice there after so many years. That was none other than U.S. Senator currently Doug Jones. Doug Jones has a history of the civil rights movement and a proven record that he would go against the grain to do what's right. And he is a friend of mine.
I thought so. That's why I brought his name up. I know you know him.
Well, let me just say this too, if I may. U.S. Senator Doug Jones a year ago had none other than Martin Luther King III and myself to have special privilege to actually be there in the gallery of the U.S. Senate, and a letter being read from the Birmingham jail from 6 different U.S. senators, and Martin III and myself was sitting there very attentively and exercise that U.S. Senator Doug Jones brought to the attention of the world in reading that letter from the Birmingham jail. That's the kind of person he is.
Finally, on a personal note, this time wearing was gifted to me by the daughter of Reverend C.T. Vivian. He wore this tie. I wear it proudly now, and I thank Denise Morris for gifting me with this prize that will soon be in a frame. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend as well, Reverend C.T. Vivian.
if I may, before you close. In Alabama, we say you in high cotton. C.T. Vivian, you in high cotton, sir. As you know, he was a dear friend of Dr. Lafayette, myself, as well as you. You worked as his personal executive assistant and media representative. That's how much he cared for you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we care for you. We thank you for watching SCLC Today TV and our president, Dr. Charles Steele Jr. See you next week.